fantasy football mock draft from the sixth spot. I went through this mock draft on the Fantasy Pros mock draft simulator. So if you don't really agree with who was taken or who was available, you can, take it up with them. But at 106, I took Jamar Chase, who is my 101 this year for fantasy football. I think Jamar Chase, with a healthy Joe Burrow, has the highest ceiling of any wide receiver in the NFL. Burrow was hurt last year. Chase was hurt the year prior. But in games these guys actually play together, the chemistry is real. Jamar Chase can lead the league in receiving yards, receiving touchdowns, and break fantasy this year. At the 207, I went with Drake London. I juggled him and Chris Olave, who I only rank one spot different in 2024. I think the difference between these two guys is going to be receiving touchdowns in favor of London. I do think Olave can have a higher receiving yard total, but I think their production can be somewhat similar. Drake London finally has a chance to break out for fantasy football. A new coaching staff can hopefully mean them emphasizing their playmakers in London, Pitts, and Bijan. Atlanta bringing in Kirk Cousins was huge. I think this will mean more passing volume, which has been lacked in Atlanta. Also, I think the quality of targets with Kirk Cousins will change for their playmakers. At the 306, I went with DJ Moore, who had a very nice 2023 season, and I know that Keenan Allen and Rome Odunze will provide target competition for DJ Moore in 2024, but this guy was just paid, so it's very clear that he is the Bears' wide receiver one. He's always been a guy to rack up the receiving yards. I think he's a great talent. He's going to be well connected with Caleb Williams. At the 407, I finally wanted to address the running back room, so I added Joe Mixon here. I love the Houston landing spot, and you can talk about efficiency metrics and things like that, but he is a true dual threat running back. He's a guy that can rush for over 1,000 yards, catch plenty of balls, and be a playmaker for Houston, which is a very good offense. He also was the last available running back on the board that ranks within my top 12. For 2024, I have Mixon as my running back 12. At the 506, I went with George Pickens, who I thought was a great value at this point of the draft. Pickens makes big plays. He is a deep threat who can have big-time receiving yard outings on any given week. He is now defaulted as the wide receiver one for the Steelers with Deontay Johnson gone. George Pickens is a big play threat. He stretches the field. He can finish a week with 120, 130 plus receiving yards. And now he's defaulted into that wide receiver one role with Deontay Johnson gone, along with the facts that they added both Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, who are two quarterback improvements, and they buffed up that O-line. Love George Pickens this year. At the 607, I passed on guys like Sam Laporta and Trey McBride and Travis Kelce to wait on Dalton Kincaid, who can finish as the tight end one for fantasy football this year. And why? Because I think he could be Josh Allen's number one target. We saw a chunk of weeks where Kincaid was extremely fantasy relevant. I think he has a big role in 2024, especially seeing that their wide receiver room has so many question marks. It's a bunch of good wide receivers, but no true alpha. At the 706, I selected Najee Harris as my running back 2. He was on fire after the offensive coordinator change last season and into the fantasy playoffs. He was the third best running back in the fantasy football playoffs. I do understand that there's a committee approach with Jaylen Warren, but it's very clear that Najee Harris is the 1A in this system. And like I just said before, Pittsburgh addressed that O-line for the first time since Najee's been in the league, and he rushes for over 1,000 yards every year. At the 807, I kind of reached on Devin Singletary here because I wanted to buff up my running back room, especially being pretty deep at wide receiver. He balled out last season in Houston, though. There was a good chunk of weeks where he was one of the better fantasy football running backs. And what can you count on for him in New York? Him to touch the ball plenty. I think Singletary's volume is locked in. I think the rookie Tyrone Tracy Jr. can cut into some work, but he doesn't really have competition. And even if the Giants are not very good, he's going to touch the ball a lot. He always has, especially back in Houston, like I just mentioned, and with the Buffalo Bills. I decided to go quarterback in the 9th round, and I selected the 101 of the 2024 NFL Draft, Caleb Williams. Caleb is a very, very good prospect, and he's stepping into one of the best situations I've ever seen for a rookie quarterback. DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, Rome Odunze, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, DeAndre Swift. If he is as good as people think he can be, and he has all of those weapons in Chicago, it's scary what he can do for fantasy football. Look at what CJ Stroud did last year, and I think Caleb Williams was a better prospect and lands in a better situation. So looking at my lineup right now, Caleb Williams at quarterback, Joe Mixon and Najee Harris for my running backs, Jamar Chase, wide receiver 1, Drake London, wide receiver 2, DJ Moore, wide receiver 3, Dalton Kincaid at the tight end position, and George Pickens at my flex. I filled my bench with Devin Singletary to buff up that running back room. Jake Ferguson was just chilling there, and I think he is going to have another big season being the number 2 target in Dallas, and I think the touchdowns can go up. So did I need to have a second tight end? Maybe not, but I'm going to take him away from everybody else in my league, especially if he is just sitting there. I think I have him at like tight end 7 this year. I took guys like Josh Palmer and Rashid Shaheed because I think that their roles in 2024 can take a good bump, and they are also some upside wide receivers. Palmer has that, existing connection with Justin Herbert. I think Ladd McConkey is going to be the number 1 wide receiver there in terms of, targets, but I think Josh Palmer is going to have a fairly big role in 2024, and he's balled out when given the opportunity. Rashid Shaheed is just a field stretcher. He actually had a bunch of very, very fantasy relevant weeks in 2023. So if his role grows as the wide receiver 2 with the Saints, he can be an upside flex. And then I went with Jahan Dotson as my last pick, who I really, really liked as a rookie. He, as a rookie, had a bunch of good weeks when healthy. I liked his prospect profile. Washington spent a first-round pick on him. I think that their offense is going to be better with the new coaching staff and Jaden Daniels, so I'm taking a shot here. Fill your bench with upside. We can, have these safe picks for depth or things like that. But when it comes to filling your bench, just shoot for upside. Shoot for the guys that might bust but could easily score 20 points on a given week. So that's kind of my mentality there. I don't really care what Fantasy Pros says about my draft, but I guess they boosted me, so maybe I do care, but they gave me a 90 out of 100 here, A-. I really like this lineup a lot. If I entered 2024 with this fantasy football lineup, I would be ecstatic. I think this is a league-winning lineup. Let me know what you guys think about this build, though. Would this be something you'd be comfortable drafting? What would you change? Let me know in the comments.